إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فإن أحسن الكلام كلام الله وخير الهدى هدى محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وإن شر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. So today we're going to finish off our discussion regarding the miracles of the Awliya, the Karamat, Al-Awliya, and in the previous discussion or in the previous lesson we touched upon a further 6 or 7 points. Within those points we made a distinction between what are actual miracles or karamat of the awliya and between 2 other things which are not from them. So from those things are those that we might sometimes experience, things which are highly unlikely, like for example a person is miraculously saved in an accident, for example, right, under very unlikely circumstances. So this is not counted to be a karama, right, in accordance with the definition of a karama, because a karama, a miracle of a righteous person, this is something that opposes the aada, that which we know to be the way that creation operates, the laws within the creation. Right? In these kind of examples, what happens is that this is actually a favor and a bounty from Allah Azza wa Jal. Right? So these kind of instances, they're not to be counted as actual miracles, even though in the language of the people, they might sometimes say, well, that was miraculous. Right? These are not actual miracles in the context of what we are discussing, right? So these are things like, as we said, when a person escapes death or harm or injury in a very, very, very unlikely circumstance, or on the other side, maybe he achieves some benefit in which he was extremely likely to achieve. So this is one type of thing which does not enter into the category of the karamat of the awliya. The second thing that we mentioned as well is in relation to what we call al-firasa. Al-firasa is a type of insight or knowledge or wisdom that a person has by which he can understand and know people in terms of whether they are truthful, whether they tell lies, whether they are honest, and be able to work out and figure out things about people. Now this is it's called firasa, and there are a number of different levels of this, and one of them is something that Allah Azza wa Jal, He gives to an individual. It's called al-firasatul imaniyah, right? It is a type of light that Allah bestows and gives to a person, and through that he can he knows people, their honesty, their dishonesty, and he can figure them out, he can know them. Now this is, as we said, this is one of the types or levels of al-firasa, but there are also other types as well, and the other types are those which, a person, he trains himself and he teaches himself by physical exercises, by psychological or spiritual exercises and things like that, where he removes emotions and sentiments and biases from himself, and he looks objectively at people, and so in this manner he can acquire a certain quality whereby he can know the realities of people, or understand them and know them. That's another level. This again, all of these things have no connection to the karama. And the third type of firasa that we discussed is a knowledge that you find in every nation and civilization, where they basically look at qualities and features of people, physical features, physical characteristics, and on that basis they are able to determine other qualities, like whether a person is intelligent or unintelligent, whether a person is genuine or not genuine, whether a person is brave or not brave, right? So that sometimes you can tell that from physical features, from the expression, the face, actual physical features of the body. So this again is just simply a type of knowledge. And this knowledge has been discussed within, by Muslim scholars, non-Muslim scholars in many different nations and civilizations. That's another type of thing that enters into firasa. And firasa is a type of, long word in English, perspicacity. It's like, an extreme form of intelligence and wisdom and insight. Right? So what we are concerned with is we're not really speaking about the second two, we are speaking about the first one, which is in which Allah Azza wa Jal, He bestows certain people with this nur or this light and this ability, and they are able to know and understand people. So the point that we're making is even this is not considered to be a karama. It's not considered to be a miracle from the miracles of the Awliya. Right? So that was some of the main points that we discussed in the previous lesson. And we're going to continue now. Today's lesson starts at this point, and we're on point number 11. We have a few more points to finish off this topic. So point number 11 is that, in fact, it continues from a previous point that we made, which is that the miracles can sometimes occur to people who are not necessarily righteous. Right? We said that a believer, a wali, a pious friend of Allah, is one who has iman, faith, and taqwa, which is piety. But sometimes there are people who maybe they have major sins, maybe they are upon deviation, some sort of innovation. And in some exceptional circumstances, those individuals may be given miracles. And those miracles are not because of them as individuals, but for some other wider objective and reason. So, for example, we mentioned previously that it could be the case that there is a war, and participating in the war are those who are sinful people, or those who are people of innovation, people of misguidance. But because they are engaged in something which is a noble deed and a noble act, then it is not because of them that a miracle has been granted to them, but rather on account of the context and the situation that Allah Azza wa Jal has allowed a miracle to take place as a means of aiding them and supporting them. So this is something that we mentioned previously, and so this next point, point number 11, elaborates upon that. And so the point that is being made here is that sometimes miracles can be given to individuals, and other times they can be given on the basis of a group, a collection of people. It is not necessarily for any one specific individual, but it is based on a group. And this is commonly explained in, for example, in jihad, in the legitimate warfare. There is fought for an honorable and noble purpose, has nothing to do with, the extremism and terrorism of Al-Qaeda and ISIS and these kind of people. But we are speaking here in the context of a legitimate war. And so often, not only just war, but also because jihad can be in ilm, it can be in terms of knowledge, and it can also be in terms of the use of the body. Right? There's physical jihad in terms of the body, and there's also in terms of ilm, spreading ilm. So in either of these two situations, we find basically that sometimes there are people who are not necessarily upon the sunnah. They may have major sins, they may be sinful people, they may be upon innovation, like something of the belief and practice of the Sufis, for example, or something of that nature. And so they're not holding fast to the sunnah, they're not multazimeen to the sunnah, but they are given aid and support against, for example, maybe some of the malahida, the heretics, the atheists, maybe the Yahud, maybe the Nasara, Jews, Christians, maybe against, the hypocrites, maybe against. So in history there are many examples where we can see, where we see that this has actually taken place, where the people of Islam, they were predominantly people of innovation, but nevertheless they were able to conquer and defeat, other civilizations and other nations. An example could be also here where you see Salahuddin al-Ayyubi. We know that he was generally upon Sufism and the Ash'ari creed, but he was given victory over the Crusaders on the one hand, and also the Batiniyah, the Ismaili Shiite Batinis. These were people who really, they were hypocrites, but they showed the face of Islam. They wore the gown of Shiism as a means of deceiving people, and they were, existed in North Africa in the 4th century, and they eventually took over various regions. They started from Morocco, they moved across to Tunisia, then they went across to Egypt, and they established the city of Cairo, and they took over a Sunni population, and these were disbelieving heretics. They used to worship the dead. They used to revile the Sahaba. They used to force the people to revile the Sahaba, and all sorts of evil, nasty things. So the people used to hate them. The Sunni Muslims used to hate them. So then Salahuddin al-Ayyubi, he came and he reconquered Egypt, took it away from them, and also we know that he also fought against the Crusaders. But he was upon the Ash'ari Aqeedah, and he was, we know that the scholars that were around in that time were upon that inclination. But we can see here that Allah Azza wa Jal, that He bestows strength, He bestows victory. Strength can be given to a group of the Muslims, even though they are not multazim, adhering to the Sunnah in every respect. So the intent being here that sometimes Allah Azza wa Jal, He intends to, He aids the Quran, He aids the Sunnah, and this could be when the opponent or the enemy, is someone like a disbeliever or a heretic like the Batini Ismaili Shiites. And because of the nobility of this deed and the greatness of this deed, meaning this deed of jihad, then this actually it makes insignificant compared to jihad whatever deeds that they might have which are sin or innovations, right? Because this is a principle with Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, that even an innovator, his sins, his evil deeds, his innovations can be removed by other good deeds which he has, in the sight of Allah Azza wa Jal. So this is something that we affirm, that karamat, miracles, can take place for individuals or groups of people who might be opposed to the Sunnah, in opposition to the Sunnah. Right? So we affirm this. This is a reality that we affirm, and it actually takes place. However, this in no way does it mean, this simply means that these people, in the foundations, they are responding to Allah Azza wa Jal and the Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Right? So at least they have something of religiosity, and they are, responding to Allah and His Messenger. However, we have to make sure that we are not deceived by certain people just because miracles are known to happen. Because as should be very clear now from the previous lessons that we've had, the occurrence of miracles does not itself imply absolutely that a person is upon right guidance. Right? As we've already established previously. Right? Because miracles can take place at the hands of, sometimes sinful people or sometimes people of innovation. So therefore, the point being that we should not be deceived by many of the stories that are often circulated about some of the mujahideen. Right? Some of those who are involved in jihad. And there could be people who are upon the way of the Khawarij, for example, the way of the extremists and the terrorists and so on and so forth, right? Because you hear stories which are circulated, and so-and-so miracle happened, and so-and-so miracle happened, and so-and-so happened, whatever else. So we are not deceived by the likes of these things, because those miracles do not establish absolutely that these people are upon right guidance, because of the nature of miracles in the context of what we've been discussing. So basically there are three positions you can take. There are three positions you can take. Some people, when they hear of the likes of these types of miracles that occur to individuals or groups of people who are upon innovation, who have deviation with them, they say, no, we don't believe this. This is not possible. Because these people are misguided, they are upon innovation, they have deviations. So therefore, we negate their existence. Right? So this is rejection. And there are other people who say, well, because they have miracles, this means that they must be righteous. They must be correct. And this means that they must be free from innovation. Because innovation, how can a person be given miracles when he has with him innovation and deviation? So these people then go to another side. And again, this is also incorrect. But as for the people of knowledge, the people who follow the way and the understanding of the Salaf, and this has been explained by Ibn Taymiyyah and many other scholars in his book An-Nubuwat and in other places, they say that yes, a person who is engaged in jihad, for example, this person might be given a miracle. Miracles can occur. And even if he is a mubtadi', an innovator, and a deviant, but the reason he was given it was not because of him and as an individual, because of the iman and the taqwa and sticking to the sunnah and being upon the sunnah. It's not because of that, because of him as an individual, but it is because of the wider context and the nature of the deed that he is involved in, or that the group is involved in, which could be jihad in the path of Allah Azza wa Jal, or for example an Ash'ari, for example, refuting a Christian, or an Ash'ari, for example, fighting against a Batini Shi'i Ismaili, right? And in that context, we see that something which is a genuine karama, a genuine miracle takes place. So this can happen. And because of the greatness and the nobility of the deed he is involved in, then Allah Azza wa Jal may bestow a karama. He may honor that person. Not necessarily because of him as an individual, but because of the greatness of what he's engaged in the wider context. And so the explanation of this would be that yes, innovations are sins, but at the same time, this type of jihad is obedience to Allah. It is the greatest of actions which bring you close to Allah. And we know that al-hasanat, good deeds, they remove the sayyi'at. And we know the great effect that jihad has in the removal of sins, the removal of disobedience, the sinfulness of disobedience, and things of that nature. And of course it is a deed that makes a person earn the walaya, the friendship and allegiance of Allah Azza wa Jal. So from this we are then able to understand the main point here is that we establish that the miracle can occur for a wali who has iman, who has taqwa, who makes luzum of the sunnah, he sticks to the sunnah. That's the asl, that's the foundation. We established that, and we said that miracles do not happen to other than the awliya of Allah Azza wa Jal. However, there are some unique situations or unique circumstances. for an individual or for a group of people in which miracles can still occur, even though they have sins, disobedience, or something of innovation, something of deviation. And we said that in these kind of examples, there is usually a wider context. A wider context is there's something more that's going on in the picture, and it is not because of that individual or those individuals in and of themselves that a miracle has been bestowed upon them, but because of a wider reason that relates to the context, of the situation. So in light of that, a person who denies that miracles can occur at the hands of people of disobedience, people who are falling into deviation and innovation, this person is incorrect. This person is incorrect. And likewise, the one who accepts them completely and claims that this is a sign of the righteousness and the adherence to the sunnah of a person, he is also incorrect. Because miracles, in light of what we've discussed, do not necessarily prove that a person is in adherence to the sunnah, that he's following and adhering and sticking to the way of the salaf. Right? So in other words, miracles do not necessarily, they are not a criterion for the correctness or the incorrectness of belief, of aqeedah. Right? This is a reality that we have to accept in light of what we have discussed. So this then is point number 11. Point number 12, and this is our final point on this topic, is that in light of everything that we have now discussed, in light of the preceding 11 points on this topic, a believer should now understand and know what is his approach and his perception to this issue of miracles. Meaning, how does he look towards this issue of miracles? That which is obligatory upon him is that he should strive to actualize Iman. This should be his goal. That he strives in Iman, in the branches of Iman. He tries to implement all of the branches of Iman. We know that Iman has many branches, 70 odd branches. He keeps away from all of the prohibitions. He tries to please Allah Azza wa Jal. He strives as much as he can to strive in the path of Allah, in the various forms of striving, the various forms of jihad, in terms of knowledge, striving for action, striving in da'wah, striving, all the types of the various forms, up until death comes to him. This is the way that he proceeds. He is always trying to actualize his Iman. And in all these situations, what is he doing? He is striving to please Allah Azza wa Jal. At no point at all is he ever thinking, I would like to earn a miracle. Right? This is not to be found in a believer. He's never thinking, right, I'm doing these deeds because I want a miracle to take place at my hands. Right? Because there are some people you will see amongst mankind, there are some people, amongst the Muslims, there are some people, their heart is attached to this notion of karama, to this issue of karama. And in fact, not even to the issue of karama, things which are even less than a miracle, less than a karama. Like, for example, righteous dreams. And the stories we hear of a righteous dream or a righteous vision. There are some people, they strive trying to attain a righteous vision and a righteous dream. And, they want this to have an effect upon them, upon their Iman, or they want this to be something that they can tell other people. All of this is, the issue of miracles is simply one of belief. We believe in them because mention of them has come in the Quran and has come in the Sunnah, and we believe in them. Beyond that, there's nothing else beyond that, in the sense that it now has some sort of connection to our action, in the sense that we are now striving and trying to seek out miracles to take place at our hands. No, this is incorrect. They've come in the texts, and we believe in them, and when news comes to us through verifiable, authentic channels and of news, that we accept them, we believe them. But a believer, a servant, he never ever seeks out a miracle. And as we've said before, that a miracle does not imply that you are a most perfect believer, because miracles, as we said, there were few amongst the Sahaba, and not many are narrated from the Sahaba. And then there are much more amongst the Tabi'een, much more are narrated, but the Tabi'een are not better and more superior than the Sahaba. So, as we said, Allah Azza wa Jal, He looks at people. There are some whose iman is stronger, they are more resilient, so therefore He puts them to trial, He gives them ibtila. There are others whose iman is weaker. They would not be able to handle ibtila, they would not be able to handle being put to trial in their faith, in their wealth, in their health, in other affairs. So Allah Azza wa Jal, He gives them a miracle because of the weakness of their faith. And on account of that, they become stronger because they realize they need to be grateful to Allah, so it makes that attachment even stronger. Right? So a miracle does not imply that a person has some superiority or some excellence over other people. And so we see that when you look at many of the greatest of the scholars of the Muslims, we see that we don't really see necessarily great miracles being related from them, but we see them being put to trial. Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah was put into prison for a good part of his life, and he died in prison. He was oppressed. And Ibn Taymiyyah likewise, we mentioned Ibn Taymiyyah already, and likewise what happened to Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal. He was imprisoned on the issue of the Quran, the creation of the Quran. He was beaten, he was chained, he was imprisoned, he was humiliated, and so on and so forth. All of this is harm that came to him, tribulation, trial. And likewise we see what happened to Ibn al-Qayyim. Some of these scholars were actually humiliated. Ibn al-Qayyim, for example, he was paraded on the streets of Damascus on a donkey with his head facing down and his back facing up. Right? So he was put on a donkey with his head facing down and his back facing up, and he was paraded around the streets of Damascus for humiliation. Right? Because of, he was following the way of the Salaf, following his teacher Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala, and the people, they humiliated him. And he was also put in prison as well, with his shaykh, with his teacher. However, we see that this didn't really affect the station and the position of Ibn al-Qayyim. He was praised thereafter, he continues to be praised today. His books and knowledge and ilm is widespread, and it is extremely beneficial. Right? So Allah raised his position. But if you look at how these scholars were treated, they were put to trial because of the strength of their faith, the strength of their iman, the strength of their conviction. So it does not mean that you have to have miracles, that therefore, because you have miracles, therefore now this is a sign of your great strength in iman. No, this is not the way to look at the issue. So the point then behind all of this is that the criterion is in following the Sunnah. Miracles are not a criterion. Miracles are not a criterion. This is the way of the Sufis and people like them. The criterion is sticking to the Sunnah, following the way of the Salaf, actualizing your faith, increasing your faith, obeying Allah, following the Messenger, following the way of the Salaf. And it may be the case that Allah Azza wa Jal might bestow a person and honor a person with a miracle that is in no way a sign of his excellence or his superiority. And it may be a person might not be given that. Maybe a person will be put to trial by Allah Azza wa Jal. So, as we said, you see there are these Sufis, and they say, for example, like this Tahir al-Qadri, this deviant, he says, blindly follow and place your trust in the awliya, but always be suspicious and check and examine the ulama. And it should be the other way around. Well, it's not necessarily the other way around, but the case is that we follow the people of knowledge, because the criterion is ilm, it is knowledge, it is following the sunnah, it is following right guidance. And miracles do not constitute a proof for right guidance at all. Right? But this is the way of the Sufis, that they always, invoking miracles and things of this nature for the Sufi saints and things like that, and they prove that this is a sign of right guidance. This is incorrect. So the criterion then is the book of Allah Azza wa Jal, the sunnah of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and sticking to the way of the righteous salaf. And that ends our discussion of the karamat, of the awliya.